Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the movie Shazam. And this was a pretty decent DC movie. I liked it pretty much as Aquaman, and think that it did a pretty decent job of really setting up the character and kind of just going for the wacky, kind of crazy magic kind of portion of the DC universe. And that it did a good job of setting up the kind of world and lore for Shazam going forward. Now, the thing is, the pacing of the movie is kind of a little bit off. It's kind of bloated in the middle around the kind of training sequence, but after that, it kind of picks up a little bit better around the third act and kind of closes off pretty well. So, the main focuses of this movie are mainly Billy Batson and Thaddeus Savannah, and their kind of connections to the wizard Shazam. Because the movie starts off in 1974, upstate New York. We see him driving in this car, and the kid, Thaddeus Savannah, is being picked on by his brother and by his father as well before getting sucked into this magical dimension, and he's tested by the wizard Shazam to see if he has like a pure heart and a good spirit to take on his powers, because he's the last of a council and he needs someone to take over for him and make sure that the 7 sins are kept under wraps and in their statues. So, of course, he leads them to this other kind of eye device, and he is being warped by the 7 sins to want it and want the power, and he tries to reach out for it, but of course he's deemed unworthy and shot back into the car, and he's trying to tell his family about it, and they're like, screw you, you little bastard, and they almost get hit by a car before eventually do get hit by a car, because of course the father is blaming the kid for making a ruckus in the back, and which he couldn't control the car, and he gets thrown out of the car and injured, and this kind of screws him up for life, pretty much. So then we get into it, and we see Billy Batson, and he tricks these cops into being stuck into a pawn shop and uses their computer to try and find his mother, because ever since he was little, he got separated from his mother, and he's been trying to find her. He's been dodging out of all of these foster homes, and he's in Philadelphia and trying to find his mother. He, of course, hits on this home that he'd used, but yeah, it's not his mom. And, of course, he gets caught by the cops, and he gets put into a new foster home with the Vasquezes, and they've got all these other kids in there, and the only one that really gets a lot of time is Freddie, and then Mary, and that's about it. All the rest of the kids, and even the parents, are just kind of stock characters. And I don't say that in that there's a potential to be mined from them. It's just the cast of this movie becomes huge, and they rightly just focus on Billy and Thaddeus because they're the ones that have the most character development and what's kind of going on. Freddie also gets an ample amount of character development, but it's ridden off of Billy. So he gets settled in and everything, and he pretty much gives up on trying to find his mom, and throws away the pad that he has his notes on, and he goes into school. Of course, we get the typical bully kind of stuff towards the end of it, taking on Freddie, and then Billy just beats crap out of the bullies, but not before they decide to go back after him, and he runs off, gets into the subway, and gets sucked into the Shazam portion. But before that occurs, we have that Thaddeus has been researching all these different things going on, because Shazam has been looking for a successor all this time to the present day and everything, and all these people are having these things, and Thaddeus has a brainwave and says, oh, all these symbols, you need to repeat them 7 times, 7 being one of those magical numbers, and he's got a door. And this person, it's really weird, because he's got this person researcher doing this kind of stuff, and she's like, I'm not liking that you're taking over this kind of thing. And he goes in there, writes it down, and then the door activates and she gets kind of dusted. But after that, nobody else that really messes with the doors at all gets dusted. It was a really kind of weird death. It really didn't serve a purpose. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. And he goes in, he confronts Shazam and takes the eye, and the demons are set free, and they go into his eye, and he's got the powers, and he goes off. This, of course, then leads to Billy being sucked in, and Shazam bequeathing his powers to him. He's like, what the hell? All right, fine, I'll take your powers and all that. And he gets transformed into the adult version of himself as Shazam. He's like, what the hell? And, of course, our Shazam dusts away, and he's like, replace, like, be my champion, and hopefully kind of rebuild the kind of council kind of thing going on. He had also talked about how the reason he is like this and so choosy about his champions is he had chosen a champion before and he went dark. This, of course, teasing the Black Adam movie with The Rock and unleashing the 7 sins before. So, of course, Billy kind of gets back to his version of the universe, our world, and he's like, oh, dude, what the hell? Of course, he gets up to Freddy at night. Like, dude, don't scream and everything. And they start messing around with his powers. This is where the kind of, I would almost say, padding comes into effect. I understand the need for a training montage, and we see him doing all these kind of things going around. He proved he was Billy to Freddy because he had taken this bullet that was been fired at Superman, and he was going to sell it, and he accidentally dropped it down and couldn't get it. But we see him doing all these various kind of things. He tries to stop a mugging. That was kind of funny. And he stops a robbery, and they find out that he's immune to bullets and everything. And they at first got beer to taste that, and that was sucky. And they get the usual kind of kids' food and just go around. And Billy is just kind of trying to be a superhero, like charging people's phones and doing light shows and trying to get money. I mean, he's doing everything a kid would do if they eventually just out of nowhere got superpowers and pretty much had the body of an adult. That they really honed in on. Zachary Levi does a great job as the adult version of Billy Batson as Shazam. He just works it really well. So they're going around doing that kind of stuff. They got him uploading videos on YouTube as the Red Cyclone, of course, referencing another DC character. And, of course, Freddy's kind of pissed off because he wanted the power and everything. And it's really kind of weird. They not weird, but Freddy doesn't really get as much crap because I don't know. I know that Billy's the main focus, but he's pretty much trying to utilize and live through Billy as Shazam as well, and nobody really calls him on that shit except Billy, and it doesn't really go that far. Because they do have an argument during dinner about the superhero thing going on, and how Freddy's calling him ungrateful for everything, which understandably he is, but Freddy, of course, is trying to use Shazam to his own benefits as well, eventually saying that he'll have Shazam come to lunch and eat with them, and of course, Billy doesn't do that, leading to a confrontation as he goes out and tells him about how he was bullied, and of course, he's trying to do his lightning show and accidentally sets off a lightning burst that pops a bus's tire, but he's able to save the bus, and they continue their kind of argument before Sivana pops up and wants the power of Shazam, and starting off a pretty decent fight. And the thing is, even though Billy is new to his powers, he doesn't really kind of destroy the city. He's trying to run away from Sivana at all kind of points, eventually culminating in a mall where he is able to turn off his power because he figures out that once he says the name Shazam, he can turn off the power when he's in his Shazam form or turn on his power when he's not in his Shazam form. And he blends into the crowd, but of course, Freddy is taken by Sivana because he wants to know what the power is. And he's like, oh god, Freddy, of course, understands that the eye is the dude's power and everything, and that's his power matrix. And they get taken to Billy's foster house. Now, a little bit before that, Billy gets back into the house, and of course he gets the lecture from the parents and all that. But, of course, the other foster kids were able to find Billy's mom, and he goes off to find her, and come to find out, his mom just left him. She was like 17 when she had him, and she just left him in the care of the police. And he's been looking for her for all these years, and he's just like, shit. And I like the whole theme of family and everything going out throughout this whole movie, because Thaddeus' family was shitty as hell. And he just thinks of being alone and acquiring this power to try and right the wrongs that have been done to him. Because one of the first acts of using his power was unleashing the demons and letting it kill. Well, he threw his brother out the window and then let the demons destroy the board people to the company and kill his father. And then, of course, Billy, he had been trying to get his real family, but he's decided to make the Vasquezes his family. He, of course, gets the call by Savannah, and he goes off to deal with what's going on there. And he's like, okay, listen, nothing has to happen to your family. Just to go, you're going to give me the power. So he does the door thing, they go through, and of course, he's thinking about giving the power up, but of course, his family comes to help him out, and he sees that if he doesn't have the demons with him in his eye, he's just a regular person, because regular items don't affect the magical beings, but magic, of course, affects magic. But if you take that away, he can be taken out pretty effectively. Of course, he then, Billy leads his family out. They get back into the regular world by using his powers, and Savannah, of course, follows after him to a theme park, and Billy's pretty much trying to figure out what's going on. Of course, Freddy's the one to figure out, okay, the demons, and marry the older sister who has a subplot of getting accepted into a college university, but she tries to kind of help out, and they're like, okay, divide and conquer. So they pretty much, he lets out all the demons, all the sins, except for like one, so that way he can keep fighting Billy. And that's a pretty good fight scene, because they're going through the city, they're flying, there's a funny part where Savannah's monologuing, but like they're so far away that Billy can't hear what the fuck he's saying, and they keep clashing, but the collateral damage is minimized. And this is even like a teenager with these magical powers dealing with what's going on with a supervillain. Now, granted, I don't think the supervillain wants to cause untold death and destruction. That's not his endgame goal. So it's potentially both of them being kind of evened out. And they get to a point where they're trying to get the rest. They get kind of sucked to a point where the demons have captured the rest of the family, and he's pretty much getting ready to say his powers away, but he remembers what the older Shazam said, knocks out Savannah with the staff, and bequeaths his power to his siblings, which was pretty cool. And we see that each one kind of focuses on one kind of power or another, even though they're all kind of beefed up. They keep focusing on certain sins as Billy keeps fighting Savannah, gets him to a rooftop, and gets the envy demon to come out, and he, of course, saves Savannah and is able to get the eye out, and then he pretty much pokeballs the rest of them and makes a joke about, hey, I'm not going to put a demon thing in my face, in my eye. Why would I do that? And, of course, takes him back. They put the eye back into place, and they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is our lair and all that. And it's cool that he's got a super team and a super family behind him, but you don't really know that much about the characters other than Freddy and Mary. They're the only ones that are fleshed out enough to have kind of anything there for them. So they're hailed as heroes and everything like that, seeing them on the TV. This deranged Santa Claus who was at like both events was like, holy crap, this was freaking crazy. And of course, Freddy's back at school being after been humiliated, and his family comes around and is like, hey, what's going on? It's like, oh, something special and everything. And of course, Billy comes in as Shazam and says that he had brought another friend, and we see Superman has popped up. It's like, holy shit, that's pretty cool. Now, granted, it is not Henry Cavill, and we don't see his head or anything, and it stops like before he speaks or anything. So that kind of sucked, but that was just mainly due to scheduling conflicts. But I like that they did that, and I'm just kind of, I really wanted to see a scene where Shazam and Superman kind of interacted, like Billy trying to act all cool and everything, like, oh god, I gotta act like kind of an adult. And of course, we see that the mid-credit scene is that Sivana is trying to figure out everything, and we see that there was this caterpillar thing that was on the Rock of Eternity, the Shazam layer base, had escaped, and evidently it's got other ideas of how to get magic and everything, and conquer the seven realms and all that. It's like, okay, I had to look up. That was like Mr. Mind or whatnot. I'm like, a weird kind of alien dude. I'm like, cool, nice plug. Then the end credit scene is pretty much just a riff on like Aquaman scene if his Shazam powers lets him to talk to fish, and of course Freddy's got an Aquaman shirt on. Screw that. So it's like, well, tease an Aquaman team up, that'd be kind of cool. But that's where it ends. I enjoyed the movie because it really did a good job of focusing on Billy Batson and his foil in Thaddeus Savannah. Now, I think that them messing around with the training and trying to figure out the powers took a little bit too long and took up too much a little bit of runtime, and that I understand the whole foster home concept, but the thing is, you sacrifice the amount of character development you can do with those characters. Now, granted, we could move on to the next movie and they could develop them a little bit more, but you've pretty much reached kind of Avengers Justice League level of characters in one movie with the Shazam family and them having powers. It's like, that's a wieldy thing to kind of juggle and everything, but I'm glad it didn't really take away much from Billy and Savannah. So we'll have to kind of see how that evens out and where that kind of goes. I'm glad we got the cameos that we did, but this definitely shows that DC's getting a little bit better at just doing a movie that actually focuses on the character and setting up the character correctly, because they nailed a teenager having magical superpowers and the great power, great responsibility thing coming along with that, because he learns that throughout the movie and learns to rely on his family, whereas Savannah didn't learn that lesson. He still wants power and doesn't care if he's alone for it and all that entails. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.